Now, we feel as strongly about our mothers as we do about the Prophet Muhammad. That doesn't mean you can't discuss what he says, the message he brings.
People in this country put up with being offended.
Walking
down the street, you get offended. There's somebody wearing something you don't like, or you
absolutely, and we
get offended. It's part of being grown up. It's just accepting the fact that you get your feelings trodden upon.
Hold on to your hats, folks. You're about to witness a Muslim activist try to shut down free speech. She claims we shouldn't offend religious sensibilities, but guess what? The truth about Islam is offensive. Get ready for some truth bombs.
You wanted to come back in.
Well, I mean, I was going to say, there are certainly things that are offensive, but do we need to offend people by saying them? I mean, there's a way of saying things. We can discuss the institution of the monarchy in this country without insulting the Queen. It therefore makes it perfectly reasonable and possible to discuss, I think, the tenets and beliefs of any other religion without insulting sensibilities.
Insulting sensibilities, that's interesting, without insulting sensibilities. Okay, some Muslims think that music and dancing are haram and should be forgiven, not forgiven, wrong word, Freudian slip, forbidden, haram, that it's forbidden. So if I were to say, music, forbidden, haram, that is just bonkers. Now some people are going to find that extremely offensive, aren't they? Have I offended sensibilities? Do I have the right to say that?
I think if people that are used to having debates within the interfaith debates are pretty familiar with the codes and practices of different religions and understand where those boundaries lie. And certainly that would not be one of those boundaries. But there are certain things that even people with no religion would find offensive. If I was to come on TV and start insulting, you know, I mean, I hate to be crass, but your mother, that would be extremely offensive.
So you've obviously, I mean, a lot of people have taken offence at some of the things that you've written. You know, they feel personally offended because they feel that their faith, which is so dear to them, and their belief, which they cherish, has, you know, you're criticising it. Do you think about that?
I don't go out of my way to offend.
No, but do you think about the possible consequences?
If people are offended, then they may argue against me. All I use is words. There is a radical distinction between using words and violence, and incitement to violence. The Salman Rushdie affair absolutely brings this out. Salman Rushdie simply wrote a book. That's what he did. He wrote a book. He was threatened with death. He was threatened with death by baying crowds in this country. People burned his books. They demanded the death penalty.
And some leading parliamentarians suggested that the paperback shouldn't come out.
Some leading parliamentarians, some leading clergymen, some leading bishops sided with the Ayatollah Khomeini rather than sided with this very distinguished novelist who did no more than put words on paper. That is a radical distinction.
A novelist writes a book and suddenly there are death threats and calls for his head? This is the real face of Islam, folks. Intolerance and violence disguised as religious sensitivity. And some liberal bishops even sided with the Ayatollah? Unbelievable.
Let Miriam come back in.
I do sort of feel like we're talking about issues in a vacuum here. I mean, you're talking about the fatwa against Salman Rushdie. Are we forgetting that we're talking about Khomeini? Are we forgetting that we're talking about the 1979 revolution and the context in which that was occurring? And similarly, when we talk about, you know, the reaction, the highly unacceptable, violent reaction of some Muslims, I would like to add, to films like Geert Wilders' films and Van Gogh's film, etc., you know, we're almost talking like it's completely decontextualized. It's not happening in a vacuum. Muslims around the world feel victimized.
Here we go again. The Muslim apologist playbook: deny, deflect, and distract. This woman is desperate to downplay the significance of the Salman Rushdie affair. She's trying to convince us that it was just a misunderstanding, a cultural clash, anything but a reflection of Islam's inherent intolerance. She wants us to believe that Muslims are the real victims here. But the facts speak for themselves. From the Ayatollah's fatwa to the violent protests around the world, it's clear that Islam has a serious problem with free speech. And let's not forget Theo van Gogh, the Dutch filmmaker who was brutally murdered for making a film critical of Islam. Was that just a contextual issue too? Or was it another example of Islam's deadly response to criticism? It's time to stop pretending that Islam is a peaceful religion. The evidence is overwhelming. The bedrock of a free society is the right to criticize any idea, no matter how sacred or sensitive it might be. If you can't handle criticism, you don't belong in a free society. And the notion that Muslims are somehow uniquely oppressed by criticism is laughable. They're not the only ones with religious beliefs, and they're certainly not the only ones who have been criticized. In fact, Christians are routinely mocked and ridiculed in the media and in popular culture. But you don't see us issuing death threats or rioting in the streets. We defend our faith with reason and evidence, not violence and intimidation. It's time for Muslims to grow up, embrace free speech, and learn to engage in civil debate. Until then, they'll continue to be a threat to Western civilization. Free speech means the freedom to criticize all ideas, including religious ones. And let's not forget, the real victims here are those who are threatened and silenced for daring to speak out against Islam. The West isn't oppressing Muslims. Islam is oppressing free thought. Want to learn more about the truth about Islam? Hit that subscribe button and join me as we expose the lies and defend the Christian faith. Together we can fight for truth and freedom.